doing it too.
Okay.
And if you want, change the settings to public when you share it, because that'll allow it'll allow us to see the comments within the live stream service.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and see if I could just tag you in the post, or you can just go to my page and it'll be the first thing that pops up.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, just do that. It's not allowing me to tag automatically, so we'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the pause. Welcome to another episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate alongside Jay Pfeiffer. We got a ton of NFL action to break down from Week 11 and take a look forward into Week 12. But first things first.
Yeah.
How you over there in the Shy there, man? I mean, it was another rough week for the Chicago Bears. I'm just making sure you're okay over there, Jay.
Yeah, listen, man. I'm not falling off the ledge about the Bears anymore. I think this season, we talked about it at length already, Tater. We know what this season's about already. Last week's game didn't show me anything that surprised me at all. Nagy continues to make, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that is, a bad decision in continuing to bring out Mr. Trubisky at quarterback. The offense is dead at this point. I don't think there's anything that can revive it. You can see that in the attitude in the players, in the play calling. And I don't know what the injury thing was about the hip. Again, in my opinion, if he was hurt before then, he shouldn't have been out on the field, because the offense is doing nothing with Mitchell Trubisky here. But again, that was pretty much an elimination game. It went how I thought it would go against the LA Rams. It was kind of a get-right game for Todd Gurley. You saw the Rams giving him the ball a lot in that game. And again, it was the result of a poor offense. And you just can't rely on a defense play in and play out to make plays for you, when overall they did a pretty good job. But again, it's not going to work if your offense is remedial at this point.
Right. So, I mean, to kind of catch it up for anybody that's just now joining us, we're talking about the Los Angeles Rams beat down of the Chicago Bears 17-7 on primetime football. And I say beat down mostly because of what the offense generated. I thought the defense showed up. I mean, Jared Goff didn't really have that great of a day. He made a couple big throws down the stretch and led a touchdown drive to really salt it away.
Right.
But when I'm looking at this, I feel like this entire organization, and Matt Nagy in particular, for a while now, have been dealing with Mitchell Trubisky with kid gloves.
Yep.
They've been trying to protect him each and every way that they possibly could. It's almost like he's trying to cover for a friend that he is like Matt Nagy's the boss. Mitchell Trubisky is an underperforming employee that everybody knows should be shit-canned, yet he keeps making excuses and trying to protect Mitchell Trubisky when the writing is so on the wall at this point that Mitchell Trubisky is not a starting level quarterback in the NFL. I think it's just plain as day. I don't know how much more of this you have to see until Matt Nagy loses his job, because he's just going to go down with the ship.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was talking about this a good friend of mine, and you know Chris Rouse from Students of the Game. He's a good friend of ours. We worked together at UIC as well, and we're talking about this actually yesterday, Tater. We compared this a lot to the Mark Trestman era, and I know some people will say, well, it's probably not as bad, but there are very similar situations. In the fact that you go into one season, the first season under both of these coaches, you set the world on fire with an offense that is up tempo, that puts up a lot of points, that has a lot of explosive plays in it, and then you go into the next year with high expectations, and it's just a complete meltdown from your offense for whatever reason. And of course, it definitely falls on Trubisky at this point. Again, I think only 170 yards, almost 45 attempts. That's not going to get it done. Again, David Montgomery was a non-factor in this game. They're just not seemingly willing to give him the ball enough. And I think we actually touched on this a couple of weeks ago, Tater. I wouldn't have thought the loss of Jordan Howard would have been that big in the Bears running game, but it has seemingly been a big issue so far for this run offense for the Chicago Bears. But I mean, having said all of that, I still believe in David Montgomery and his skills. But you can, again, just to use your saying just a few minutes ago, it's it's plain to see that the offense is not going anywhere with Trubisky at the head of its quarterback, and the swarming indictment is starting to come around Matt Nagy. Again, this is my opinion, because he's continuing to trust this guy that is continuing to not get it done. And I was telling Chris this, that I can see some of the players, I can see the locker room starting to fade away from Matt Nagy just a little bit. And I wouldn't have said that even, up until a couple of weeks ago. But you can see when the defense has continually trot out there and make these, stops and stop these drives. And listen, the LA Rams offense is not what it was last year either, right?
Hell no. It was without Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods this week.
Exactly. So some of that is on a subpar Rams offense, but the Bears played well on the road. I mean, what more do you want from a defense like that only gives up 17 points?
Gave up 17 points. My apologies. I wanted to jump in.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
They also turned over the Rams offense on the first two possessions for the Rams. They got the ball back for the offense. And, I mean, you can say what you want about Eddie Piñeiro missing two makeable field goals and then them not even attempting one and going for it. I think it was like on fourth and sizable, fourth and 6 if it's not escaping my memory correctly. But the point is you had 3 drives. The defense set you up pretty well with 2 turnovers of a good offensive unit on the road. You come away with 0 points from it. This team, and you mentioned, man, I could see people starting to turn on Matt Nagy because I get being loyal and I get trying to let Trubisky work himself. A guy that you invested, Ryan Pace, and the general manager of the Bears and the rest of this front office really heavily invested in just 3 years ago. But it just hasn't worked out. And look, I mean, here's the biggest thing with me. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall when we heard reports, and you even heard Mitchell Trubisky after game number 1. He's speaking to the media after that disaster opening night against the Green Bay Packers. And one of his quotes was, "I was told not to talk about the previous game." Look, he's being that's not an alpha male. That's not being accountable. That's being all right, just don't talk about the last game. And hopefully the reporters and the media just won't talk to you about it because we want to forget about that. No, dude, you're a man. You're the leader. You got to be accountable and not hear whispers no matter in a market like Chicago. You can't have your coach turning off the TVs around the facilities because your quarterback is too mentally frail to be able to handle some criticism.
And you said it right. You hit the nail right on the head. They're using kid gloves on what's supposed to be your franchise quarterback.
Right.
And if that's the case in year 3, there is no way that you can see this guy being the leader and the future of your franchise. And again, I think to me, again, this is really starting to become an indictment on Matt Nagy. I think you're starting to convince me with the fact that he may be in over his head in this thing. And again, for a guy that we were drinking the Kool-Aid from just this time last year, on our way to securing a North Division spot in the playoffs, it's just been a disaster so far this year. And with that loss last week, the season is done. You hear the reports from Jeff Dickerson out in Hallis Hall today. He does a great job on the Bears. But Nagy continues to say that he's going to stick with Trubisky if he's healthy. And I just don't know why at this point because, like I said, you risk further losing the locker room at this point. And if it's not already starting to happen, you just wonder what the future is for this franchise because it's starting to look more and more like they may have to turn the page and start this thing all over again, which is really disappointing.
Now, I don't know about that. I understand why Bears fans would think that way because it's such a monumental disappointment based on what we saw last year from almost this exact same roster. They brought back the entire offensive line. They brought back all of the major wide receivers and added even in a couple pieces. Then you lost Jordan Howard, but you brought in a very talented rookie in David Montgomery and even Mike Davis, a comparable competent veteran. Then on the defensive side of the football, you basically kept everybody. I mean, you replaced Adrian Amos with Clinton Dix. I mean, that was really the only. I mean, you lost Bryce Callahan in the slot if you really want to be nitpicky, but you even brought in Buster Screen. So I mean, I don't want to. This was the same exact roster, and this was the same exact roster that had the defending Super Bowl champions on the ropes, and it took a double doink that took a bad bounce for the Chicago Bears to not advance to the NFC divisional round. I'm trying to exhale. I'm trying to compose myself.
You gotta breathe a little bit, Tater.
And I'm not like I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, but I'm sitting here because I lived in Chicago. You know, I started to support this football team and really had high hopes for them. I mean, they were my pick to come out of the NFC this year. That's how much I believed in this team, and they're making me look horrible strictly because I think a lot of it has to do with number 10. I get that there's protection issues. I get that there are some receiver issues outside of Allen Robinson. I mean, I'm not saying it's all on Mitchie T.
Right.
But I mean, I think Nagy, you can't even bench him like a man.
Right.
You can't even bench him like a man. You got to make excuses to go ahead and bench Mitchell Trubisky. Like, oh, he had a hip pointer injury. Bullshit. I think I see right through that, man. I think that's horseshit.
And this is the other part about it, Tater. We've known for years now that he has accuracy issues. And now you want to point it to maybe hip pointer? I don't think so, right? I mean, listen, the guy has had trouble hitting wide open guys through the onset of his career. His fundamentals, quarterbacking, are completely bad. I don't need to tell you this. You watch enough tape, you watch enough football to know that the guy barely throws with his feet set. He focuses on one read, and he has no leadership, no control over the offense whatsoever. You see that in the play calling to where he's barely audibling, if at all, at this point. And again, he's not pushing the ball down the field. And when he attempts to, he either grossly underthrows it or grossly overthrows the football. No accuracy, no fundamentals, no footwork, which if you're playing quarterback, that's where it always starts. It always starts with your lower half. And if you can't be at least accurate, his arm strength is not an issue. It's the accuracy. And that has always been the one knock on Trubisky since he's come into the league, and he's not gotten better at it, and he's regressed. And again, it's not all on Mitchell. The Bears have big time offensive line problems. We get that. But you've got to find ways to get it done. I mean, you're running out of excuses. You still got most of your talent, especially offensively on the field. And if your number one receiver is Tariq Cohen, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Allen Robinson faced off against Jalen Ramsey, got that assignment for most of the game, if not all of it. But, I mean, still, when you see that Tariq Cohen's your leading pass catcher, that's an indictment right there that he's really not willing. I know that he actually missed Tariq Cohen, who was pretty much matched up on a linebacker. It was Matt Nagy dialing up a beautiful wheel concept for the running back out of the backfield against a linebacker. And you see Tariq Cohen after Mitchell Trubisky throws it, about 5 yards out of bounds behind him.
Yep.
And all you had to do is drop that sucker down the rail in the bucket, and Tariq Cohen's gone.
Yep.
I mean,
and
you see Cohen throw his hands up in frustration after that throw because I think in particular, the wide receivers have given up on this man because he sucks.
Yeah.
And
you don't even hear them talking after the game anymore a whole lot. And that's the thing. You don't usually, whether it's a lose or win, you have your skill players, either they're at the press conference or they're giving post-game interviews. You don't even hear that anymore. And that is also alarming about, I think, the quarterback play. Just as you alluded to, you're starting to see a lot of frustration with these skill players because he's not getting them the ball.
And that's going to be, we'll go ahead and change gears, but sure. I'm wondering, real quick question.
Yep.
The Mitchell Trubisky era over in Chicago?
It should be. I don't know if it will be because, again, just Matt Nagy came out earlier today and said if he's healthy, he's going to stick with Trubisky as a starting quarterback. But, again, this is 2.5 years of him now as a starting quarterback. And overall, it has not been a success. And again, I hate to say this because I'm a diehard Bears fan, but if the Trubisky era is over in Chicago, what do you do at this point? You have to think about starting all over with the franchise quarterback. And, these guys don't come cheap and they don't fall off trees. So you got to think about moving ahead in the draft. And again, that sets your franchise back at least a year or two. So it's very disappointing overall as a Chicago Bears fan.
And also, it's funny that we look at it this way because last preseason, when they made that move, that aggressive move to bring in Khalil Mack, which I still think was the right move.
I agree.
I still think was the right move, but we didn't expect after what we saw last season to potentially this team to be picking inside the top 10.
Right.
And guess what? They don't have that first rounder anymore.
Nope.
They don't have that first rounder, so they're not going to really be able to get one of those elite talents. They're going to have to go to free agency, and hopefully like someone like Cam Newton becomes available. I mean, you're going to be dealing with the same exact stuff if you go and get Marcus Mariota, but
Agreed.
More questions than answers for the Bears under center. We'll also talk about some of our other top takeaways from Week 11 of NFL action. I'm going to start with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And I got to ask, I got to go ahead and throw this comment up on the screen. Edit718, thank you for joining us live. That Deshaun Watson, that was tough to watch as he laid an absolute egg on the road. I think it was under 200 yards passing, an interception, a fumble lost as well for Deshaun. I mean, basically no points generated except for one long run from Carlos Hyde. Lamar Jackson just put it on the Texans, continuing to look like the fastest and the best player on the football field. And that's saying a lot from what we've seen from Deshaun Watson this year at points. What is your takeaway from this 41-7 beatdown of the Ravens over the Texans?
Listen, the Houston Texans, this is something we've also known for a couple of years now. They have offensive line problems. So yes, Watson did not have a great game, right? And I watched a little bit of that game. I know that one interception he threw, I can't remember if it was in the first half or the second half, but that one interception he threw, it was a miracle that he even got away from the tackle in the first place. But a bad decision on that interception. I think he threw it to one of the D tackles on the Ravens line.
Oh, no, it was off he was rolling right and throws back across his back across the middle of the field, off his back foot. I mean, it was a major no-no.
Major no-no. But again, this game was more about the Ravens and their defense more so than Lamar Jackson, who I'll also get to in a minute when we get into our MVP discussions. But to me, this was about the Ravens defense, man. 7 total sacks. 2 forced turnovers. Again, that interception I just talked about, and a fumble by Deshaun Watson. Nobody has been talking about the Ravens defense, surprisingly, right? This was a team this was their calling card, especially in the Ray Lewis years. It was a stout defense. It was a non-turnover type of offense with a powerful running game is what the Ravens were, especially the first 10 or 11, 12, 13 years or so of the 2000s, right? But again, along with Lamar Jackson and that emerging offense, that defense is really starting to play well for the Ravens. I mean, there was really nothing that Deshaun Watson could do really all day. He was under duress. Again, that goes back to the Houston Texans and their O-line problems, which they have also not fixed. I think there should be heads on a plate for that as well. But this Ravens defense is getting it done, and they are looking scary, man.
Yeah, they are. I mean, you mentioned their defense, which I'm glad that you kind of alluded to because you held the Texans to 7 points, and those 7 points were when the game was already well in the bag, and it was just a one-pop run from Carlos Hyde. But, I mean, you look at the defensive back talent that they have. Earl Thomas, Jimmy Smith. They traded for Marcus Peters. Marlon Humphreys becoming one of the better young slot corners in the NFL. And they have another defensive lineman up there, Pierce, that also a very good football player. So, I mean, I like what they're doing on the defensive side of the football. And we continue to see Lamar Jackson continue to evolve as a passer. And he has every single defense I've seen him so far against this season, maybe with the exception of the Cleveland Browns. Every other defense has been absolutely on their heels, not knowing what the hell to try to do with this guy. And keep in mind, he's doing this with a number 1 wide receiver in Hollywood Brown that has really been injured and nicked up for most of the season. And he doesn't have a true number 1. Other than that, it's like Willie Snead catching the ball.
Well, his number 1 is the tight end, and I'm blanking on his name right now.
Mark Andrews.
I mean, my goodness. He is found a chemistry with Mark Andrews, especially in the red zone.
Right.
That guy has a catch radius. I mean, it may be one of the best in the league. He can, and this is the other part that I love about Lamar Jackson. You talk about him evolving as a passer. Some of those passes, especially to Jackson, were exactly where you needed to put them.
Right.
High back shoulder or high away from the defender to give your big guy, a chance to go up there and get it. He's putting the ball exactly where it needs to be when we talk about accuracy in quarterbacks, right? Not to beat a dead horse when we talk about Trubisky, but it's accuracy. It's not just the arm strength. which also Lamar Jackson has. Let's not make no bones about it. But again, he's making the plays inside the pocket. And if you think you've got him sacked, 39 yards later when he's juking and spinning and running over guys, lowering his shoulder into safeties, that's when you know you've got a really special talent in Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, what Lamar Jackson is he's Michael Vick, but far evolved as a passer at this point in his NFL career in his physical prime.
Agreed.
Remember, Vick set the all-time rushing record in a season with, I think it was just around like 1,083 yards on the ground.
Jackson's going to obliterate that.
Back in 2006, but he only threw for 2,400 yards. Now, a lot of that had to do with the fact that Brian Finneran was his best wide receiver.
Right.
He really didn't put any talent on the outside around him, which was Atlanta's own fault.
Their undoing, maybe.
Absolutely head-scratching. But Lamar, I see so much more moxie and ability, and I would say discipline to go through his reads. And if he's on time with throws too, throwing balls into tight windows when he feel like on rhythm, on time, you're not seeing him hold the ball and like a Mitchell Trubisky who has to see it before he throws it. You're not seeing that. You're seeing anticipation. You're seeing him go through his reads, identify what the opposing defense is in, and there's no panic. The game has slowed down for him. It was already slow on the ground because he's faster than any player on the field for the most part.
Right.
Now, as far as up here mentally seeing coverages and what the opposing team is trying to do, you've seen the game slow down for the best athlete on the field, and that is a scary combination when you're for the entire NFL.
Agreed. Now, and before we get to our next sort of takeaway here, back to the Ravens. Do you think that it could be a negative? Again, we're projecting now, but let's assume that they'll make the playoffs, which they probably will, right? No true talent outside on the wideouts. I mean, again, they're dealing with a little bit of injuries there. But do you think that can be a detriment come playoff time?
I mean, it's certainly something that can make it a little bit more difficult for the Ravens to be able to do things. And now, in particular, a team like the New England Patriots, who I think they're going to have to go through in the AFC. You know the defensive mind that Bill Belichick is, and you know that they have a solid defense. I know that Lamar Jackson had a great game against that entire defensive unit, but in the playoffs, when possessions are and everything is almost small ball, it could come back to bite them. I mean, but the Texans went full Jimmy Hoffa. I couldn't find them the entire game on the offensive or defensive side of the football.
Agreed. So, all right, I've got a game ball to give out, and I'm going to stick with some defense here, man. And I know, listen, this team is not going to go anywhere, but what they've done the past 2 weeks has really impressed me. I'm going to talk about the Falcons here a little bit. Again, we've gotten on them a whole lot this year. Dan Quinn probably still hasn't saved his job, but for being a defensive coach when he was hired to fix down there in Atlanta, this is probably the first time that it showed up in an extended process. They've only given up 12 points in the last 2 weeks, Tater, to the Saints and to the Carolina Panthers. And again, we're probably going to downgrade the Panthers here. They're probably not as good as maybe we thought they were. They're starting to come back to earth a little bit. But if you can only give up 12 points in 2 weeks, listen, I got to take my hats off to you. They intercepted, Allen. Yeah, 4 times last Sunday, and sacked him 5 times. So I'm giving a big old game ball to the Falcons defense. They've been playing great the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can't blame you for throwing the defense some love as a unit. I mean, I know that I don't believe Dan Quinn is calling plays anymore, which I think that is a very welcome change because they have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football, and we've seen that over the last 2 weeks. I mean, granted, none of us are disillusioned that the Carolina Panthers are a juggernaut with Kyle Allen under center, but they put it on Drew Brees and the Saints, so it was no fluke. It seems like something has been figured out after the bye week, and they're playing the hell of a lot better on the defensive side of the football. So definitely tip of the hat to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to go back to the offensive side of the football, and I've given this guy a lot of shit and actually knocked his team down in my power rankings because I thought he was the sole weakness of the team. I got to give some love to Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G, man. I mean, he didn't play a perfect game, threw 2 interceptions, but Garoppolo threw for 424 yards and 4 touchdown passes, including the game-winning drive, one on an angle route to Jeff Wilson Jr. And I thought he kept firing away. I mean, they fell behind 16-0 in the blink of an eye, and yet Garoppolo settled the troops down. And really, Emmanuel Sanders wasn't right. I mean, every time he caught a pass, he got up like it seemed like somebody stabbed him with a knife in his abdomen.
Right.
He was going through that rib injury, but Jimmy Garoppolo showed up. And he was the reason they won that football game. And that it wasn't the defense. The defense has been great all year. But, I mean, Kyler Murray is playing some good football.
Mm-hmm.
So is Kenyon Drake and the rest of that Arizona offense. Maybe they're on to something there in Arizona. But the San Francisco 49ers, make no mistake, they're 9-1. And that 9th win has to do with the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo played his ass off.
Yeah, Jimmy G, he certainly did. And I didn't get a chance to check a whole lot of tape on this game. But what I did see was that final drive, and of course, they get the turnover at the end of the game. It makes it a 10-point spread. That wasn't the telling story.
No.
But it was that final drive by Jimmy G and that San Francisco 49ers offense. Again, making the right read, right? We're talking about quarterback play here, right? Arizona comes with a 0 blitz. They bring the house, and Jimmy G picks it up. He knows where his hot route is, and it's a rumble and a bumble right into the end zone for a game-winning touchdown. Again, I've probably given him a little more credit than you have. I know he's one of your favorite players to talk about in the league, and I say that with air quotes, Tater. But listen, he's leading the team, and that's the thing that you want to see from your quarterback. And also, you want to see him make the plays when it counts the most, right? And that's literally what Jimmy G did. I think the Niners are trending down just a little bit, but again, that 9th win, which could be a big 9th win, and what's shaping up to be a really packed NFC playoff race as a whole.
Yeah,
big win by the Niners, because they should probably have about 2 or 3 losses at this point, and maybe 2 of them to the Arizona Cardinals.
2 of them against the Arizona Cardinals. We could certainly dissect every single game, but I mean, it's something where you keep winning football games in the NFL. It's not an easy thing, and Jimmy G keeps finding a way to win, whether it looks pretty sometimes or whether it's ugly. They won an ugly game, but guess what? They won. They got the W. As far as before we move on to our MVP watch, if there's anybody else you want to give a game ball to.
Yeah, I do actually. I know this is a guy that we love to talk about as well, and you're starting to see a little bit of growth. You want to see the consistency. But I know it was against the Dolphins, right? But Josh Allen, in my opinion, had his best game as a pro. Career high 3 touchdowns through the air, another one on the ground, and another one that I liked was that he was efficient, going 21 for 33.
Yeah.
I believe 256 or so yards with those 3 tutties in the air. Again, I know it was the Dolphins. I get that, but they're still an NFL team, and the Buffalo Bills are 7-3. Again, you got to beat who you play on the schedule. But they're 7-3. They're also firmly in the hunt in the AFC playoff picture. And I like what I'm seeing out of Josh Allen so far. But he's got to string along these starts. Got to get consistent, because guess what? It doesn't get any easier as the season winds down to a close. And as you maybe get into a playoff berth, the games are going to become that much tougher for you. So I want to see a bit more consistency from Josh Allen. But again, I think that was his best game as a pro. He gets my last game ball of the night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Buffalo Bills, I think they're going to make the playoffs as one of the wild card spots. I mean, right now they're in seeding as far as the top wild card spot at this point in the season. And Josh Allen has progressed, even though he's been very inconsistent. There's been some peaks and valleys. Yeah. Still struggles with his accuracy, still struggles with some of his decision-making. But make no mistake, he's made steps from his rookie season to his sophomore season as a passer, because he's already thrown for more yards and more touchdowns than he did all of his rookie season.
Agreed.
So for me, I got to tip the hat to Josh Allen, because at times I've kind of thought the same thing about him as I did about Jimmy G, is that he's really the weakness of this team.
Right.
However, if we continue to see this growth, and I thought he did some more things just because it was the Dolphins, I don't care. You got to complete the passes.
Right.
You got to play well against the competition that's in front of you. And oftentimes, the Bills played down to their competition.
Exactly.
They didn't do that on Sunday. They made a statement, and Josh Allen had his best day as a professional. I 100% agree with you about that. Him and John Brown were absolutely vibing all day. So yeah, I mean, I definitely got to tip my hat to Josh Allen. And for the folks that are joining us right now live, look, this is more of an NFL talk show, so I don't want to focus too much on fantasy football and the questions, but hey, I do appreciate y'all jumping in, so I can definitely answer a question or two real quick. Victor, thanks for joining us. David Njoku, probably coming off of IR. If he plays this week, would you play him over the likes of Gerald Everett, the Rams tight end?
You know what? It's hard to say for me. Usually games coming off an injury like that, they can be a little shaky, but if you're a guy that's kind of desperate and looking to plug in a guy, go ahead. Why not? I think the Cleveland Browns offense is kind of trending upward these days anyway, so why not give it a shot?
Yeah, and they're playing. It doesn't hurt that they're playing the Miami Dolphins as opposed to the Rams, who are playing on Monday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens. Personally, I would honestly, and we expect that Robert Woods will be back. Maybe Brandon Cooks plays, but keep an eye on those two players. If Cooks and Woods are out again for whatever reason, I don't think that they're both going to be out, but if they are, then Gerald Everett is definitely my pick because Baker, despite playing a little bit better as of recent memory, I'm still not sold on the Browns offense quite yet. And I know that's going to break your heart, Woody, who is just throwing Browns an exclamation point there. But I mean, that's kind of my quick take. Victor, will answer one more question before we jump on to our MVP watch discussion. Need to start two of these wide receivers this week. I mean, we got what I'm assuming it's Amari Cooper, not Cooper Kupp. Gallup, and then we got Robbie Anderson and Darius Slayton. Look, as far as I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, period. I know he had a rough week, and it was an odd week against the Detroit Lions because Michael Gallup just went bonkers.
Right.
But I'm going to go ahead and still, against that New England secondary, I don't want to start the number 2 wide receiver. I will start Amari because I think he's going to bounce back. He's going to go against Stephon Gilmore. I think he's going to have a nice bounce back week. And then right now, Sam Darnold's playing good football.
Yes,
I mean, he's coming off of one of his best games of the entire season, if not his best game. So having Robbie Anderson is the guy I'm going to go with over the likes of Darius Slayton, who you're just praying for a touchdown.
Right.
Slayton from Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Listen, I think, and we're gonna get to Dak Prescott when we talk about these MVPs, at least for me. But he's playing great. That Cowboys offense is humming. Again, I would probably start Cooper and Anderson. Gallup, I mean, he's had some good games here. I know, like you said, last week he went nuts, but I wouldn't expect that 2 weeks in a row. So those would be my picks as well, Cooper and Anderson.
Gotcha. And one more fantasy question before we jump on to the MVP watch. Rock out. Thanks for joining us. Amari Cooper, Tyrell Williams, Coleman, Devin Singletary, or Bo Scarborough. We got a Bo Scarborough question. Boy from the University of Alabama. He actually, no disrespect to Bo, got activated off the practice squad this week for the Detroit Lions. Got 14 carries, found the end zone. I mean, so he's definitely a legitimate option if you're a little bit tough at running back and you need 2 running backs. But I'm still going to go Tevin Coleman and Devin Singletary over the likes of Bo Scarborough. No disrespect to Scarborough, but I don't know I know Jeff Driscoll and the Detroit Lions played a hell of a lot better on the offensive side of the football than I expected against the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm still going to go ahead and go with Devin Singletary. I think Singletary is one of the best young running backs out of this rookie class. And Tevin Coleman, it was a weird week. It was a great matchup on paper, but the Cardinals did a good job shutting him down in the running game. But make no mistake, I want the lead back in a Kyle Shanahan system as one of my starting running backs. And then 2 flex. I mean, it's definitely Amari Cooper is one of them. And then I'm going Tyrell Williams.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're talking about picking over Coleman, Singletary, or Scarborough, I'm going to pick Coleman and Singletary as well. Couldn't agree with you more on Devin Singletary being one of the best young running backs in the game right now.
He's dang good.
He had 75 on 15 carries, I think, if I remember that right, last week against the Dolphins. So he's getting it done. So those are the guys I go with as well. And
he's starting to get more and more and more involved in the offense. Over the 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's seen 15 or more carries. So I mean, we're not seeing as much of Frank Gore. It seems like they're kind of changing that gear to the younger player that's far more productive at this point in his respective career. But now we're going on to MVP watch. And I feel like we know who we're going to talk about, but I want to go ahead and throw the floor to you first because I don't know if you're going to throw me any curveballs here.
No, I don't think so. These are my top 3 MVP candidates up until this point. I know we didn't have a recording last week, so we missed a change there. But I just talked about this Cowboys offense and Dak Prescott. For me, he has thrown himself back into the MVP discussion. He sits at number 3 for me coming in this week. He has had an incredible month, Tater. Check these numbers out. 10 touchdowns, 3 picks, over 1,300 yards passing over the past month.
Right.
Along with the Cowboys going with 3-1, and it took an epic, well, not an epic comeback, but it took a really good game from the Vikings last week. Otherwise, the Cowboys would have been 4-0 over the past month. So Dak Prescott, he checks in at number 3 for me. He was one of the guys that I had on my watch earlier in the season. Of course, with the team stumbles, I think they lost like 3 in a row. He stumbled out of my watch as well, but him and that hip exercise, man. I wish I could do it for you on camera.
Oh, I ain't even trying it, man. I'll throw something
No, you don't want to see me doing that. But listen, Dak Prescott, again, firmly back in the conversations. He sits at number 3 for me.
Okay.
Russell Wilson, still at number 2. Of course, a bye week, so Seattle didn't do anything for them. But he is still the guy out in Seattle. And now he has Josh Gordon. I think that chemistry in that relationship is just going to grow in these next few weeks. Russell Wilson at number 2 for me. But, of course, we talked about him enough already in the show this week. It's Lamar Jackson, man. I mean, who else is it at this point? He just keeps surprising people with the things that he does in these games. And, again, another 4-touchdown performance. The Ravens are really exciting to watch. And I think that's the key for me is why Lamar Jackson sits at number 1 for my MVP. They're back to being exciting on the offensive end. Not that they were before his arrival, because they really weren't. Again, they were more of a defensive team, but he is putting on a show. He's box office, and he's worth every single price of admission right now.
I don't blame you for going with Lamar Jackson at 1. I mean, you look at the 2 teams that he's beaten recently he beat the Cincinnati Bengals with a perfect passer rating, becoming, one of 2 quarterbacks in NFL history to ever do it twice in the same season with a perfect passer rating, him and Ben Roethlisberger. Then you look at the fact that last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, he became one of 3 players in NFL history to throw for 3 touchdown passes, run for 1, and have a perfect passer rating. The other 2 to do it, Aaron Rodgers and Joe Montana. So the things that he's keeping some elite company, and not to mention he beat a Texans team that I expect to see in the playoffs in the AFC. And you knocked off the previously unbeaten defending Super Bowl champions who have been playing lights out on the defensive end, and they had no answer for you.
Yep.
So I don't blame you with going Lamar 1. I have him at 2 still. I got Russell at 1.
Okay.
I still got Russell at 1.
Hey, I don't blame you there.
Believe it or not, they're still the same record. And, I mean, both of their respective teams are 8-2. And, I mean, Russell, we don't see him run the football nearly as much as he used to back in the day because he's significantly grown as a passer. And I'm very interested to see what he's going to do. You already met the aforementioned Josh Gordon has now been added into the fray. We've seen DK Metcalf. By the way, this kid was absolutely electric coming out of Ole Miss.
Absolutely.
I had him as the number 1 wide receiver on my board, and I knew he was a little bit raw, but you've really seen his growth jump from the beginning of this season to where he is now. He is a handful for defense. And now you got another guy that's almost the guy that was DK Metcalf before DK Metcalf was when Josh Gordon. I mean, and you got Tyler Lockett.
Yep.
Chris Carson. I mean, and even that young man, Jake Hollister, who's coming off the bench because of Will Dissly getting hurt. So I still got Russell, who I think that the Ravens still got a very good defense. They could still run the football. You take Russell Wilson off the Seahawks for me, and he just knocked off, speaking of beating unbeaten teams, he knocked off the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
So
with another drive in the fourth quarter / overtime as well. I mean, listen, I'm not mad at you whatsoever, but again, coming off of the bye week against Seattle, didn't play this week. The only reason why Lamar gets the number 1 spot is basically because of that, but you're not getting any argument from me. Again, if you take, like you just said, if you take Russell Wilson off the Seattle Seahawks, they're probably a sub 500 team right now. So, I really can't disagree with you at all with that call.
Correct. So, all right. So now we're moving on to power rankings. Like, go power rankings. Yeah. I'm sorry. I went full on Power Rangers. I need to stop.
Hey, that's all right.
So go ahead and give me your top 5. It's interesting now, man. It seems like and by the way, My boy Andrew throwing in there. About time you actually stream. I think you're about 7 minutes late. We're actually a week and 7 minutes late. So it's been a long time since we hit you with our power rankings.
Yes, sir.
So who do you got now? How much is it shaken up since our last episode?
You know what? There's been a little bit of shakeup. I think I may raise your eyebrows. I may not. But I will tell you this. There is a new number 1. But let's start with number 5. And again, this team was – I probably, if we were doing the show last week, I probably would have had them drop out of my rankings. But because the Packers were on bye and because this team played, they sneaked back into my top 5. I'm probably going to raise your eyebrows a little bit with this one, but I've got the Saints coming in at number 5. That was an ugly loss to the Falcons 2 weeks ago. They get right against your Buccaneers last week, Tater. But for me, it was between them and the Packers. And again, the Packers were on bye. So I think the Saints edged them out just a little bit. Again, when I was looking at these two teams, I think the talent, at least right now, if I had to compare these two teams for pure talent, the Saints edged out the Packers just a little bit. So I've got the Saints coming in at number 5. But again, they've got to get right again. And I think they're starting to, again, of course, it was at the mercy of your Bucs, but that's neither here nor there. At number 4, this team was on bye this week, so I can't punish them too much. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Again, they've only got 2 losses, and our boy Russell Wilson leading the way. Again, let's keep an eye on that Will Dissly injury. I'm not sure when he will be back.
He ain't coming back. He tore his out. He's out.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll see who steps in his absence. But again, I like Josh Gordon. I like DK Metcalf. Chris Carson's got to continue to play well. Tyler Lockett's got to be able to just be Tyler Lockett and be sort of that every type of guy, making third down catches when you need him the most. Again, I like the talent that Seattle has, but it's all about Russell Wilson. Right now, I've got the Seattle Seahawks at number 4. At number 3, I talked about this team a little bit earlier in the show, about them maybe trending downward a little bit, even though they won on Sunday. That's the San Francisco 49ers. I know they've only got 1 loss, but their defense has looked just a little bit shaky the past couple of weeks. They've gotten some big plays on them in the passing game. And of course, Kyler Murray he's going to make a lot of people look foolish. So he made a lot of decent plays in the running game as well. Yeah. But again, the Niners trending down just a little bit. I don't think that's a bad thing. They can regroup a little bit as the season sort of goes into its final phases, but I've got the Niners coming in at number 3. I think they got a little lucky last Sunday.
Okay.
At number 2, I've got the New England Patriots, a team that I also think is trending down, Tater. They need offense really, really bad. It was actually one of my top takeaways from the week. I don't know if you saw that Tom Brady presser after the game, but he's not happy with the offense, man. And listen, leave it up to Bill Belichick to dial up that trusty wide receiver pass from Julian Edelman. If when you need a score, that always seems to be the play that Belichick dials up.
Right.
And it continues to work. The only touchdown that they got New England last week, they're lucky that their defense is so good this year. Otherwise, they may have a couple of more losses on their hands as well. I know there's some rumblings and reports coming out of New England that they may reach out to Antonio Brown. I know he apologized on social media, I think earlier today, to the organization. I don't know if that's going to happen. I will probably put money on it not happening.
Right.
But, man, the Patriots need an infusion of offense, and they just have no running game to speak of at this point. They're really winning their games because of their defense. So I've got them coming in at number 2. At number 1, Tater, this team has 2 losses, but they're passing every single eye test. And I was so reticent to put them in at number 1, but it's the Baltimore Ravens this week. I know it's fluid. I know these things change, but to me, what I see on both sides of the football, offensively and defensively, right now, they're the most complete team in the league. They're the most exciting team in the league for me to watch right now. They're still trending upwards, in my opinion. And again, they're just really exciting to watch. And of course, when you've got Lamar Jackson leading a team like that, they're box office, man. And right now, again, you're talking about, 1 loss to the Cleveland Browns, and I forget at this point who that other loss was to. But outside of all of that, the Ravens are the most complete
Kansas City
team
Chiefs.
right now.
It was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. But again, having said all of that, and the Chiefs are still good, even though they got some struggles to work through as well. But the Ravens passing all the eye tests for me, man. They look the best. They look like the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to. And here's my top. I'm going to just let you rip with my top 5, and you're going to tell me who's missing, because this was actually the first week that I had a really hard time coming up with a definitive top 5.
Okay,
you can make a case. I counted 8 teams that you could make a legitimate case for.
Same here, buddy. Same here. Yeah, 8, 9 teams are all right there.
Right there. So for me, at 5, I'm just going to run down my list and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
I got the Seahawks at 5.
Okay.
I got the Packers at 4.
Mm-hmm.
I got the 49ers at 3. I've got the Ravens at 2. And I've got the Saints at 1, which that means the New England Patriots did not even make my top 5. And I know they won on the road at Philadelphia this week, but you cannot convince me. When you're talking about an eye test,
right?
They have not beaten anybody of note this year.
Yeah, and that's been the argument, right? And I can't certainly refute it at all. I mean, but again, I think you have to give the credit where credit is due, right? And we talk about the schedules and beating who's in front of you. And listen, for the most part, they've done that. Now, when they ran up against a really good team in those Baltimore Ravens a couple of weeks ago, they kind of got their asses handed to them a little bit, right? But I think that was a win of note last week. Are the Philadelphia Eagles going to make the playoffs this year? Probably not. I mean, they still can maybe make a run at the thing, but
they'll have to win their division. If they want to make it, they'll have to win their division. They'll have to catch the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. But I'll tell you why I think that was a game of note, because even after the Lane Johnson injury, they were able to get after the quarterback and really sort of stymie that Philadelphia Eagles offense, because up to Carson Wentz, and they were kind of, again, getting their asses handed to them, especially up front in the trenches. But they've got, if not the best, I'm sure one of the top 2 or 3 best defenses in the league right now. Again, they are mightily stumbling on offense. So I get all of your points there with the schedule, and they've not beaten anybody you think of note. But I kind of put just a little bit of value in that Philadelphia Eagles win. Philly's not an easy place to play. Again, Philadelphia's probably mediocre at this point, but I mean, I hear you on that. But I give, especially last week, I give that win just a little bit of credit.
I'm giving them a little bit of – I'm not saying it was an indictment against them, but I saw the same struggles that they had against the Baltimore Ravens in that 17-10 victory against the Philadelphia Eagles. And they fell behind 10-0.
Yep.
And that was with the Eagles not having the services of Jordan Howard, not having the services of Alshon Jeffrey.
Right.
Of course, no Deshaun Jackson. I mean, you had Nelson Aguilar as your number 1 wide receiver. I mean, you still had Zach Ertz and you still had Carson Wentz. So, I mean, they could have found a way to get it done. But that secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles has really struggled all year. And it took a trick play for the New England Patriots to be able to find the end zone. They couldn't run the football against this unit. They're struggling up front against the offensive line. I love Tom Brady. I do. I hate the New England Patriots, but I respect the greatness of Tom Brady to be able to do what he's done for as long as he's done it in the NFL. He's the best I've ever seen. But he looks cooked.
Yeah.
He looks cooked. He looks like Peyton Manning looked when he won his ring with the Denver Broncos at the swan song year of his NFL career, and he won a Super Bowl. He rode out into the distance, into the sunset on top.
Yeah, and that's offensively, right? Again, if you saw that press conference after the game, he is clearly frustrated. 216 yards on like 47 attempts for Tom Brady, and again, that's not going to get it done. I think the big problem for the Patriots, especially offensively, is first of all, it always starts up front, right? But I think what people expected this year, at least in my opinion, I know what I expected was them to lean heavily on Sonny Michel.
And they can't.
Right. Especially coming off the second half that he had last year and on into the playoffs for the Patriots. But again, he's dealing with banged up with a little injury earlier on in the season. And they've just sort of played musical chairs on that offensive line going back, during the offseason for the New England Patriots. And they just haven't found that chemistry that they need to be successful up front yet. I think they can fix it. But again, I mean, I can't necessarily argue with you dropping the Patriots outside of the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at every other team, as much as the Seahawks, I don't think they have a great defense, but I sure as hell trust their offense more right now than the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the Green Bay Packers. They actually have had an improved defense with being able to run the football, and you still have Aaron Rodgers. And then you got the 49ers, who I think that are similar to the Patriots, but believe it or not, the understudy has played better than Tom Brady up to this point.
Sure.
And I think there as Emmanuel Sanders eventually gets healthy, you're going to see a better Jimmy Garoppolo. And then the Ravens exposed the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
And
in a lot of ways they did. But I'm curious about the Saints. You've got them at number 1, Tater.
I do.
Where would you have had them last week after that Falcons loss?
I still probably would have had them at 1 or 2.
Really?
Yeah, I still would have had them at 1 or 2. I mean, I thought that
didn't concern you at all.
The Saints did a pretty good job. I mean, if you watched, I don't know how much of the Bucs Saints game you caught, but they were still able to bottle up Mike Evans without the services of Marshawn Lattimore.
Right.
And you saw a healthy Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
And Kamara had 120 total yards against, and he had a good rushing day against technically the best rush defense in the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, of course, you saw Drew Brees bounce back. I mean, they had no answer from Michael Thomas. That's not a shock. And you got after Jameis Winston and forced him into 4 turnovers. I mean, granted, one of them was a drop by OJ Howard, but I mean, still, you turned Winston over, which is the key to always stopping the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is pretty easy to do. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Soft ran against the Buccaneers aside, but I still think that the Saints, what they can do defensively, I love what Cameron Jordan brings along that defensive unit up front. I still like Marshawn Lattimore quite a bit, even Von Bell on the back end. And then, of course, the Saints with the veteran quarterback presence of Drew Brees and Michael Thomas, who I think is the best wide receiver in the NFL. No disrespect to DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, or any other great pass catcher in the league. I think Michael Thomas is the best.
Yeah, no, agreed. At this point in the season, there's nobody that can touch him. I mean, he's too big, too strong, too fast right now.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, that's why I got the Saints. And I mean, you give me a healthy Alvin Kamara and an underrated offensive line up front. And
yeah, I was just, for me, again, I was just so shocked at that Atlanta Falcons loss 2 weeks or last week that it really, and again, we see the Falcons defense playing well, so it probably wasn't a one-off, but I was just so shocked at that I had to drop them down just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard to figure out the Falcons all year because you have so much talent on both sides of the football. Deion Jones, Vic Beasley, then on the flip side, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. I mean, Alvin Ridley, Austin Hooper. I know he's hurt right now, but I mean, you see on paper how great they look. I wasn't shocked that the Falcons could actually put it together for an entire game. Although I was surprised that it happened to be against the Saints.
Right.
But super, super shocked against a division rival. I wasn't super surprised. I wasn't going to hold it too much against them, but I did want to see how they were going to bounce back on the road against the Bucs, and they did exactly that.
Yep.
So, as we move forward now, changing gears, Week 12.
Yeah.
I think that there's 3 games on the slate that I'm keeping an eye on personally. But are there any matchups? I think we got 2 great primetime games yet again. And then we got, I think, the battle for the AFC South.
Yeah, I mean, and it's shaping up to be quite a race to the finish for this AFC South, isn't it? Yeah, let's start it right off with the Thursday nighter, man. Indianapolis at Houston. Boy, I thought, and dumb me, I thought Jacksonville would play that game a lot closer than what they did. But, man, you saw Indianapolis just come out and take it to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Got to keep an eye on that Marlon Mack injury. I think he broke a bone in his hand. I want to say
he's
something
out
like
indefinitely. That. He had surgery. He's out indefinitely. So, I mean, Jonathan Williams is going to be taking a lot of looks, and so is Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, so that's a blow. That's a blow to that Colts offense. But listen, I like sort of the cool, calm, steady pace that Jacoby Brissett brings to the Indianapolis Colts. I think Frank Reich is getting the best out of those guys down there. And, yeah, they got to travel to Houston. Houston's going to be mad. They're going to be upset. But listen, they have got to figure out a way to protect Deshaun Watson. I mean, come hell or high water, I just don't understand why this is not something that has been fixed already. You've got a franchise quarterback, in my opinion, a Super Bowl quality quarterback in Deshaun Watson. They've got to figure out a way to protect him. But man, I think it's going to be a hell of a game on Thursday night going in at NRG Stadium.
Yeah, I'm incredibly impressed with Frank Reich, who is still up for me as a top candidate for Coach of the Year.
Yeah,
considering that you lost Andrew Luck, as we know, kind of retired out of nowhere. I mean, now T.Y. Hilton's been banged up. I mean, now Marlon Mack's hurt, but then you have two guys run for over 100 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Marlon Mack and Jonathan Williams both just absolutely die. And by the way, for any aspiring nightclub bouncers, go ahead and just watch game film on Quentin Nelson. This man ragdolls 300-pound linemen like they're little kids.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody that Quentin Nelson, his blocking assignment has not touched the running back all season long. That's how dominant this left guard is.
Boy, he was certainly worth that first round pick a couple of years ago for the Colts. I mean, he is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame.
He's like Larry Allen. He reminds me a lot of Larry Allen. He's just freaking
bowling over guys. He's making guys look silly.
He's a steamroller, man. He's a freaking steamroller, but has the speed of like a pickup truck. It's nuts. So we got the Colts and Texans. And then we got on Sunday Night Football, man, I'm really juiced up about the Green Bay Packers taking on the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, me too. I mean, listen, Green Bay coming off of a bye, but they've got to go on the road. It's a tough assignment. San Francisco, again, they've got some sort of issues to work out the past few weeks here. They've got to shore up some of those big plays on defense. And again, they can't the last few weeks now, they've gotten off to slow starts. Can San Francisco match the energy? Because Green Bay is going to come out fired up and ready to go after a bye week. Can San Francisco match that intensity right out the gate? Because I guarantee you, Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback that you want to have to play catch up against. No disrespect to Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, but if you let Aaron Rodgers get off to a 10-point lead, 14-point lead, that is going to be a hell of a task to try to overcome. So again, the big key for me is, does San Francisco, can they limit those big plays, because we all know Aaron Rodgers loves the big play, and can they keep up the energy for a full 60 minutes?
Yeah, we'll see. I think that the key is going to be in the matchup between Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, DeForest Buckner, and that defensive unit up front trying to get after Aaron Rodgers against David Bakhtiari and the rest of the offensive line unit up front for the Green Bay Packers. I think if you can get to Rodgers, I think they've got an advantage because now they're coming off their bye week, and Davante Adams is going to be that much healthier, and he looks like himself heading into the bye. So, I mean, I think he's going to be 100% a full go, and Richard Sherman and company are going to have their hands full against Davante Adams, even, Marquez Valdes-Scantling and the rest of the Green Bay pass catchers. But Aaron Jones, if they can find ways to continue to be able to run the football, LaFleur, kind of a branch off of that Shanahan system. It's going to be another interesting battle within the battle between Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur, a head coaching battle that I'm interested in. And then finally, a Monday nighter, the defending NFC champion Los Angeles Rams welcoming one of the hottest teams in the NFL, if not the hottest team in the NFL, in the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson into town on Monday Night Football. I'm going to go ahead and call it right now. I think Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens are going to put it on the Los Angeles Rams. I know that's easy because I'm just taking the hot team.
No, but listen, it's about what you see on the field, right? I mean, we talked about it, earlier to start off the show with the Rams. This is not the Rams' offense of last year. It's not even close. We know they've dealt with injuries, and especially to their wide receiving core, they've been banged up pretty much the whole year. We get that, right? But this is not the same Los Angeles Rams that you could pretty much, mark it down every week for 30-plus points a game. That's not happening this year. Another quarterback that has regressed is Jared Goff. He's not getting it done. I know they've got problems on that offensive line as well, so that's where a lot of those problems erupt. But I'm with you, Tater. I think the Rams are probably going to get embarrassed on national television. I don't see any way of them stopping that Baltimore Ravens offense. I just don't see it.
Yeah, the only thing it's because this man's a problem for every offensive line unit in the league, and that's Aaron Donald. I mean, if they have no way to stop Aaron Donald from just wreaking havoc and collapsing the pocket from the middle, then I could see them potentially putting some speed bumps into this Baltimore Ravens offense. However, though, I personally, I think they're going to be able to attack them out on the edge. I know Jalen Ramsey's going to do his thing, but the outside linebackers are going to be in hell. Outside linebackers and defensive ends are going to be playing catch up all night against that zone read, quick little options, and you're going to have to try to take something away. And normally you're making the wrong decision when playing against Lamar Jackson in 2019. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters, as we're coming at you every single Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, of course, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for you folks living there in Chicago and everywhere else. But really, it's been fun. Can't wait to bring you more NFL action. Enjoy Week 12, and until next time, later, says the Tater.